Hey everybody, Sean with the Good Dog, and we've got Mr. Ernie back.
Hi, Ernie. Hi, Ernie.
Hi, Ernie. Okay, so we're at phase 2. Phase 2 means that we've done phase 1, which was prong collar introduction, prong collar place, prong collar sit, prong collar down, prong collar recall, prong collar thresholds, I'm running out of fingers, and prong collar heel. So, but tonight we're not going to do all of those, but what we're going to jump into is we're going to jump into prong collar place, and which should be moving into which we've and just let me interject this. He's been since the prior videos that we shared, he's had several days of training to help move him through this arc, right? So we didn't just do those videos and then put him away and be like, ready for phase 2, Ernie. So Ernie did the phase 1 that we showed you, which was his initial, very beginning, the maiden voyage of his training. And then we've been just slowly, incrementally upping the ante, upping the requirements, upping the standard that we're looking for. So that all said, we're going to be moving to e-collar next. But this should show you what, for you guys who are just doing prong collar work, this is super important because this will be all you're doing. For you guys doing e-collar work, this will be your kind of your jump off point where you know, okay, cool, my dog knows all of the commands on prong. Now I can move to e-collar and we can start to move from there. So what we're looking for is to walk him onto place and then hopefully have him down automatically because he's been patterned to do that. If he doesn't, then I will give him a reminder and then repeat that until we hopefully get him into a spot where he's doing that nice and consistently on his own. If it doesn't happen now, it's no need to freak out for anybody. You just pattern it. And for those of you moving to e-collar, it becomes a very easy process once you have a dog on place. And if they don't down, you just say down and give them a quick little tap and they're automatically going to go down. And then you can eventually, whether it's prong or e-collar, for any of you guys who are squeamish about like, well, I'm not sure when to give the correction, and like to ask for an auto down like on place without saying anything seems like unfair. Here's the thing. Eventually, when you've done a ton of reps and you know your dog knows what you're asking for because you've done the sequence over and over and over again, eventually you have to ask for the place to down automatically. And the way you do that is by asking for place. And if your dog doesn't give you the auto down, then you're going to say no, down, and give them a pop, right? And that will likely clean things up if you do it at a level that your dog cares enough about. And the same thing goes for e-collar. So you can say no, down, and give them a tap. You could also get rid of the no and just say down with a tap or down with a prong collar correction. So everybody's kind of got a little bit of their own way of doing this. So a lot of trainers like to say no with the tap and then give the command. I typically will give the command again if I'm trying to continue the dog's motion to get them to complete an exercise. Sometimes I'll break my rules depending on what I think is best for the dog. But if you think about it this way, and this is a good time to kind of like share this with you guys. If I'm trying to get a dog to finish a motion, right? Whether it's finish a sit, finish a down, finish a recall, finish a place to an auto down, what I'll typically do is ask for the command again with a correction, whether it's prong or e-collar, because what it does is it continues the flow into that command. Now, if you say no with the correction, then a lot of times what will happen is the dog will hiccup and freeze, and then you still have to like get them into the command from there. So you can bypass the hiccup and freeze just by saying whatever the command is that you're looking for. The dog will still get the consequence, but so many trainers and owners are freaked out by repeating a command that they're like, you can't repeat it, can't repeat a command, you got to say no. Thing is, if you repeat a command and you do it with a consequence, It's a command with a consequence. So it's not like a free pass, which everybody's worried about. Oh, you're just going to like turn that command into a nothing command because he's heard it 100 times. But if he's heard the command and then doesn't do it, doesn't execute, but then he hears it again and there's a consequence, you better believe he knows that that command has a consequence that follows it and that he has to actually comply. So that's the basic kind of approach of how I view these things. I use no typically when I want the dog to freeze, stop, whether it's prong or e-collar. It's like if you're on place and you start to move, no. And there's a correction straight away, whether it's prong or e-collar. There's no free pass. There's no, I don't typically tell them to go back to place unless I have to. The no means freeze, stop what you were doing, and go back to what you were doing. So if he starts to get out of the down, no, or no. The dog should go right back down into it. If the dog is in a sit and jumps out, no, the dog should jump back into a sit. So if that doesn't happen, then you might have to help the dog get back into that position. And you continue these patterning, sequencing, training approaches until you get the dog to a spot where they're doing all these things in a way that you want them to do it. That all said, that was a mouthful. Let's check out Ernie and see how he does with place and hopefully auto down. And if not, then I'll have to work him through it. Ready? Let's go, bud. Come on, come on, come on. Wake up, wake up, wake up. I know I talk so much. All right, you ready? Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go to that place, right? And then you're gonna lay down as soon as you're on it. We clear? Okay, we're clear. Okay, guys, Ernie said he's got this one. Here we go. Let's go. Place. Good. That's a boy. That's a boy. Nice. So what you see right there is a byproduct of a lot of patterning. And the patterning has been like this. Soft, soft, soft. A little bit firmer, a little bit firmer, a little bit firmer, little higher expectations, little higher expectations, little higher standards, firmer, and then boom, you get this nice easy thing and you don't actually have to do much. Bad training looks like, I've told you the command and damn it, here's the consequence for not completing it. Like if your training arc looks like this, you're doing it all wrong. Your training arc should look very nice and gradual and organic and slow and slow, but as rapid as what works for your dog. So don't keep your dog in kindergarten. If your dog is a smarty pants and is really easy with this stuff, don't like overwork them to where they're like, geez, I know this stuff so well. You have to find the sweet spot for your dog. So, but the sweet spot is most definitely not like, here's the command. I've had you sit twice, and now if you don't do it, I know that you're defying me. That's what happens with a lot of people, trainers and owners. So they ask for the command or they teach the command a few times, and then if the dog doesn't comply, you're defying me. Typically, you just haven't done enough patterning, and you haven't done it in enough in enough varied environments, contextual changes, things shifting, all sorts of stuff going on, higher levels of proofing and things like that. So if you haven't done all that, and then you're expecting your dog to perform when the context changes or when the environment gets far more distracting, you're really being unfair to your dog. So nice, slow, gradual arc into that space, okay? That's how we got him here. Ready? Let's go. Come on, bud. Come on. I think that pep talk worked. Lay down again, okay? All right, here we go. Let's go. Place. Down. Okay, so now let's talk about that. So he got onto place, put himself in a sit, and then he stared at me. Do I need to lay down? And so what I did was I gave him a pass that time, and I said down, and he gave it to me. So I didn't correct him. I made a judgment call there and let him pass. But this time I'm going to do it again. And if he does that again, then there will be a consequence for it. So then we'll see how he starts to put his pattern together after that, if he needs that consequence. So what I don't want is, I don't want a dog who knows the pattern, but is like, I don't really need to do it. Like, the goal isn't to create robots, but the goal is to create reliability. You're looking for a dog that if you need them to lay down, you need them to lay down. If you need them to recall, you need them to recall. If you need them to heal, you need them to heal. These can be very serious situations, and so they can be very serious situations for safety, but they can also be very important pieces of a puzzle of living a nice life with your dog, because you can trust them and they're reliable. And if your dog is giving you like a 50-50 or a 60-40 kind of split of reliability, that's not going to be safe, and it's certainly not going to lend itself to you feeling like you can trust your dog in a lot of contexts. So let's check him out and see if I have to now correct him for not doing that. But once again, a lot of practice, a lot of repetitions, a lot of patterning has helped get us to a space where we don't need much to get what we're looking for. Now, is it the worst thing in the world if you have to ask your dog for a down after getting on place? No, it's not the worst thing. But I'd really like your dog to get into a spot where it's place, down, so they can just automatically do that. So that's the goal, right? Let's go. Come on, bud. Here we go. Place. Good. There you go. So, a couple things. 1, he's doing great. 2, he looks very cute. 3, if you notice, I'm not using any verbal markers until the end of the sequence. So I'm not saying good when he's on place. I'm not saying good when he sits. I'm not saying good until he lays completely down, because now what I'm trying to teach him is I want this entire cycle, and that's when you've done the right thing. That's when you've finished your whole sequence of what I'm looking for. So that's why you hear me eschewing the markers prior, because I don't want to say good for place, good for sit, and then good for down. I don't want those are building blocks that you use to teach the dog, and at some point you want to remove those building blocks, because the dog doesn't need the training wheels forever. It's not helpful, and it's also not informative if what you're really looking for is not any one of those singular behaviors, but an actual sequence that thus ends with down on place. So if he would have messed up and stayed in that sit, then I would have said down and give him a little pop on the leash, and that would have sorted it out. I want to try a couple more real quick and see if he'll make any mistakes, so you guys can see me correct, and then we'll go from there. Let's go, bud. Come on, come on, come on. Place. Down. So I said down, and he pretty much beat me to the correction, right? Like, I don't know if you guys even saw it, but it was like, I don't want to say a weak correction and diss myself, but he was already laying down. So there was very little of anything except for the noise of the leash and the backup leash making like a, so, but here's the thing. He did know that I was coming for him. He knew that after I'd said place, he had then gone into a sit, and then he went. And then I said down, and he saw me coming for him, and he's like, uh-oh, I've done the wrong thing. And he was like, whoa, and he went straight to the down. But here's the thing. a lot of you guys, what you'll do is when you go to correct your dog, they'll try and beat you to the thing. They know, oh God, the consequence is coming. And then they'll try and like jam into it before you can actually share the consequence. Still share the consequence, right? If you want the value from it, if you want your dog to actually carry that knowledge forward, then make sure like that he actually gets the consequence, even if it was kind of a half-assed, not such a great one. But he didn't need anything firm. He didn't need anything like life-altering or like knocking his block off. He didn't need any of that. He just needed a little reminder of like, Sean's been friendly and fun and sweet, but he still means business. And that's really the tone of what I'm trying to create here, because he's an easy, good guy. Yes, he's had some bites on his record. Yes, he's made some mistakes. Yes, he has some impulse control issues. And if you've watched the early videos with him, you've seen me be very cautious, very careful, much more controlled of like my tone, slowness of the way I speak, fluidity and slowness of the way I move and all of this stuff, because I've tried to be careful and make sure I know the dog, which is a really good lesson for any of you guys. Make sure you know the dog backwards and forwards before you start to get fancy pants stuff and start moving a little bit more quickly, start, doing anything that might get yourself into harm's way. So I'm not sure where I was going, but let's do another rep and we'll see where he was going with that. But I think primarily what I was trying to say was that make sure you share the consequence, even if your dog tries to beat you to it, because you want to make sure that that knowledge travels forward so you don't have to continuously nag your dog. Ready, bud?
He's asleep.
Let's go. Come on. Late night training. It really is late night training. But you got it. You're a young buck. You're a young buck. You can handle it, right? Yeah. All right. I got to just perk him up.
Okay. Enough then.
Okay. I'm just trying to perk him up. You ready? Are you ready? Here we go. This is going to be a good one. Okay. Let's go. Place. Good. That's great, bud. That's great. Nice, nice, nice. So that's about the best you could ask for as far as, nope. So he's coming into me because I'm making it really challenging for him. So this is on me as well, but I still said no. I still grabbed the leash and I still gave him a little bit of a prong pop backwards. It's like, this would be a good proofing exercise down the line, especially for dogs that are really real, that are affection junkies. So, which is kind of who he is. So if you get close to him, then he wants to come into you. And so you can use that as proofing, a proofing exercise to be able to come in, touch, get close, and make sure he still keeps himself on place without making a mistake. But all that said, what I really want to get into is that I think this is a great example of prong collar training done really right with a very nice, slow, organic, fair arc for him to progress through not really knowing any of this stuff to being able to execute it at a pretty high level and not needing any kind of major pressure, major force, anything that once again is perpetuated and propagated as far as like prong collar training, yank and crank and all of this stuff. It's like, I don't know, what'd you see? How'd it look, right? And maybe some of you cynical folks would be like, well, we didn't get to see the training sessions in between. Rest assured, I did. Shelby did most of them. And they were just all about repetition, just patterning, repetition, because that's really the gig. The gig is just to kind of teach the dog, here's how you win the game. Here's how you win the game. I need you to sit. I need you to down. I need you to place. I need you to whatever it is. And here's how you avoid pressure so you win the game. And you teach the dog that nice and fairly over and over again. It becomes a pretty easy thing for most dogs. Obviously, there are exceptions. There are dogs out there that are truly challenging. He's more challenging than Ozzy, obviously, but he's still on the low end of challenging guys. So hopefully we'll get some that will be far more interesting for us to deal with. But I'd say, I'm going to fall here. I'd say between Ozzy and him, they cover a lot of ground as far as kind of low to middle of the road dogs, whether they're just untrained or that they actually have some issues. And so I think they cover some really nice ground for you guys as far as the folks that have dogs that resemble these kind of guys. Like his main issue is just dealing with arousal and excitement and then making bad choices when he's in that space, whether it's on a walk or inside the house. And teaching him duration place and teaching him he needs to listen to rules, teaching him that humans are going to be giving him the information he needs and that he needs to listen to us and that consequences do in fact come from us, have helped him chill out, relax, still retain the sweet, fun guy he is, but manage himself in a different fashion. And so I'm hoping that this gives you guys a really good view into what can be done with prong collar training for, like I said, with whether it's with Ozzy or Ernie, low to kind of medium, a little bit higher than medium because, he's got some stuff, but just some really nice work. So let me just do a little bit of proofing with moving around. I'll do it with the leash in my hand first. This is better. These are not better. These are more exercises for you guys to do. You've probably seen me do variations of these while we were doing the first phase, but in the second phase, I want you to see me once again doing it. And if there are any mistakes, there will be a correction and I will put the dog back in that spot. So let's see what we get. So just to remind everybody, if he was to move from a position that he's already in, right? Sit, down, place. If he's to move from a position like this, it's strictly a no and a consequence, right? The goal is you catch him with that no at the right time when you see it happen, and then you deliver the consequence. And if your timing's in the neighborhood and your dog's been patterned right, then the dog should go back into the position, right? So if he jumps off a place, I'm not going to say place. I'm going to say, no, I don't want you moving off there. Freeze, whatever you're doing, go back to where you were. But when I was trying to get him into, and I'm trying to create some clear distinctions for you guys as far as my training philosophy, when I was trying to get him into the down when he was on place and he was just kind of sitting and staring at me, I didn't say no because I didn't want to create the hiccup. I didn't want to create the bump in the road that stopped him from continuing and fulfilling the sequence, but more importantly, the command is what I'm trying to get to. So instead, he came onto place, he sat, he stared at me, down, pop, right? So just so everybody's crystal clear on that, if I want to get a dog into a position that they haven't completed, they hear the word again and a consequence. If they're already in position and they make a mistake, they hear no and a consequence. I hope that's crystal clear. So let me do a little walking around. Keep the leash nice and loose. I've got one finger through it. And I can move further away from him, but you notice I keep my hand out to where it's kind of an optical illusion for him. He sees, well, maybe not an optical illusion, but he sees me at a further distance. But the leash is never getting tight. So that's what I'm really looking to have happen here is that, well, maybe it is an optical illusion. I want him to think I'm further away than I am, so he'll maybe make a mistake, but the leash is over here ready to correct, but it's also loose.
Can you explain how you would correct if he was to pop up right now?
If he was to pop up right now, I would do what I just said, which is I would say no as soon as I saw him pop up, and then I would give him a little prong collar correction. Really that simple.
And would you repeat down again?
Only if he needed it. So I'm always here I'm always here to help the dog. So, but you don't want to enable the dog, right? You don't want to enable them by like, okay, I'm going to do all this for you. You're not going to have to think and actually do any of the work. So if he jumped up out of this, I would say no. Hopefully he'd lay right back down. If he didn't, no, consequence. And if I said no and he stayed in that position, then I would say down with the correction. I think I got that all right. It's a whole bunch of stuff to try and process, but that's pretty much the way it would go. Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfect.
Cool. And then we can drop this, give a little touch. Not because I'm saying I love you, but because I want to use the affection as a proofing mechanism. How does he do when I come over and touch? Because I know he's an affection junkie. And he does great. And for any of you guys who are concerned, I don't know if you can see it through the camera, any of you who are concerned about his paws being off, I really don't care about that. So the only time I care about body position that looks like something questionable is if I see a repeat behavior of a dog starting to like army crawl off, right? If you see that over and over again, I'm going to correct it. If I see a dog just lay down and their paws just happen to come off and you can tell there's no intent to try and push the boundary or to try and like shimmy, I don't care about that. It really doesn't matter because he doesn't care about it. But if he cared about it, if it was part of his strategy to like maybe get off the mat and go across the room, then I'd care about it, then I'd correct, and then I'd make sure it was clean. But this is super cool. What he's got right here is what all you guys should be looking for. And then the goal is you're sitting on the couch, you're watching TV, you're making dinner, you're dealing with the kids, you're answering the door, you're working on the computer, whatever it might be, and your dog can hang out right here, be included in the environment with you, be included with whatever's going on with life, and not get underfoot, not have to be put in a crate, not have to be put in another room, and not be a problem, and then be released to have fun and monkey around. You want to play and wrestle in the house if that's what you like, go right ahead. You want to take them outside and throw the ball and throw the frisbee and go crazy or whatever, go right ahead. But this gives you the best of both worlds. You get a dog that knows how to shut off, and you get a dog that you can turn on and have a blast with. So I hope this one is super helpful for you guys. And thanks, Ernie. You did great.